Well, my 25 subscriber milestone coincided rather nicely with National Autism Awareness Day, so in honor of both of those occasions, I give you Autism in Popular Culture, Stanford Pines. My other favorite character in Gravity Falls. As I mentioned last time, Dipper is definitely on the spectrum, but he's not the only member of the Pines family who displays autistic traits. There is another, and that other is Stanford Philbrick Pines, author of the journals, and one of the only people who ever came even close to actually understanding what's going on in Gravity Falls. So for the beginning of A Tale of Two Stands, I liked Ford already, and then by the end of the episode, he was tied for first place with Dipper as far as my favorite characters go. One of the main things I want you to know about Stanford is that he's really, really smart. And one of the things he talks about, my grades were too high and my social skills were too low. So from that it can be inferred quite smart, but a lot of difficulty interacting with people, which that's, type 1 to a T. Like he gets called a genius. Good thing you got your brain sixer from Stan. That's kind of obscured by the camera because the placement was off, but it's Stan saying Ford's brain seemed to get more impressive every year, and you can see he's built a perpetual motion machine. Also in this, look at the face, look at the body language. I don't think he likes hugging, uncomfortable with physical touch. That's another symptom to look out for. Undergrad to PhD, 3 years ahead of schedule. So we're given to know that he's quite an intelligent person, but that he's sort of, this is a good thing you've got your brain sixer in context, is him being a little uncoordinated and not necessarily great at much else. So I think we have this to understand. A little awkward, uncomfortable with touch, quite intelligent. And he also hyperfixates. You can see he's hyperfixating on Gravity Falls, like Dipper does, solving the mysteries of the town, being frustrated that he has to sleep, which interrupts his research. In fact, the one thing that can get in the way of this hyperfixation is his other hyperfixation, which causes him to literally set aside his research for a little fun time. Dungeons, and more dungeons. He's like, contrast, sleep. I wish I didn't have to do that. This board game. We're going to put aside everything I've been working on and just do this for a little bit. So, what can get in the way of a hyperfixation? Only another hyperfixation. I love this episode so much. It's fun to watch Dipper and Ford, who've both felt a little weird and out of place, be like, you. It's like the pointing Spider-Man meme. It's like, hey, somebody. And then Ford in Journal 3, which highly recommend. It's like, I can't believe I'm writing this, but today I actually had fun, is Ford recounting this episode in his journal. So it's kind of cute, because at that point he's just very stressed, trying to deal with Bill. Excuse me, sorry. So it's kind of fun. Ford's hyperfixations, there's the two main ones that we see is the paranormal and then dungeons, and more dungeons. We touched on this earlier a little bit, but I want to dive deeper into it. Ford's social skills. We see him struggling with this a lot, but I feel like these 3 frames best describe his difficulty, because it's like him in high school at a party trying to have fun and talk to somebody, but obviously saying something amiss, which that's obviously not this exact situation. I've never had something splashed on me, but that whole like, I'm nervous about this conversation, and then just saying something that turns out to be very rude, and it's very awkward for everyone, and then I'm like, I did something wrong, but I couldn't necessarily say what. And it's worth noting when a fan asked Alex Hirsch, the creator of the show, what Ford was saying in this scene, his response was probably a line he got from Stan, which this is kind of a pattern. I mean, Dipper, in that episode where he's trying to learn how to talk to girls, gets advice from Stan also. So I think this the idea of mimicking someone that, in this situation, Ford I think is sort of mimicking or getting advice from someone he perceives as more socially adept than he is, which is definitely something I've done and is a pretty common feature of masking for autism spectrum disorder. And I think too, Stan has a little bit more charisma, I think, than his nerdier brother and nephew do. But we know from Stan's interactions that he's not really an expert too. So even just the fact that Ford considers Stan to be socially adept, or at least more than he is, I think is another indicator that he might not have the best grasp on what being socially adept looks like, and be sort of very confused about how to become that way. So I think that's worth noting here as an aside. In the previous video, I talked about not telling your kids autism is a superpower, and I honestly think Ford is a really great example of why. Obviously, he and Stan are supposed to have been born in like the 50s or the 60s. 50s, 60s. Which, at that point, autism as it is currently understood was not a real diagnosis. So it's not quite the same thing, but he was sort of, looking back on all those quotes about his intelligence, was like, just sort of replace autism for your intellect. And you kind of have the same situation where he felt like a freak because of his 6 fingers and being socially awkward and not really knowing how to interact with people very well. He felt like he didn't really belong anywhere. And so I think the fact that being super smart was the one thing everybody praised him for, and I think he sort of internalized that as like, this makes me special, this is how I can get accepted by people, and this is how I can stop feeling so alone. I mean, he talks about Gravity Falls a lot of the time as like the place where a weirdo or a freak like me will finally fit in, because he's never really felt like he fits in anywhere else. And he figures that the best way to find belonging is to use his intellect to wow people so much that they sort of accept him. And I think that's the main reason Bill is able to get to him, because you can see Bill flatters his intellect. He appeals to his intellect, his desire for greatness first. He tells Ford he's brilliant. He says, "You're Stanford Pines, the man who changed the world," a sort of a tantalizing hint to Ford about what his future might hold. And then, once he's gotten to him that way, he starts telling Ford, "I'm your friend. I'll help you be great. I don't care that you're weird. You fit right in with me." Even in the finale, he's telling Ford, "You would be one of us. All you have to do is help me." So I think that's kind of how he gets to him, is preying on that feeling of preying on the sort of my superpower, my smarts are what make me special. They're the way to get people to accept me. And then this idea of fitting in and being accepted, even though he's a bit of an anomaly. And I think that's also how Bill's able to isolate him, because even like with McGucket, Bill preys on Ford's fears of McGucket trying to sort of steal his clout, steal his idea. And it touches on it more in Journal 3, and I don't really have time to go into it, but read Journal 3. It's very good. Bill sort of plants the idea that McGucket will try to take all of Ford's ideas and pass them off as his own. And eventually that's all Ford can see. And then obviously Bill also damages Ford's relationship with his brother because Ford at that point feels like he can't trust anybody because he realizes Bill was never trustworthy. And that feeling of don't trust anyone carries through almost until it's too late. I mean, his damaged relationship with his brother almost destroys their chances of defeating Bill. And then I think when he sees Stan sacrifice his own mind to defeat Bill is when he realizes that he was wrong in not trusting Stan and in allowing his fear of betrayal left over from Bill and sense of this makes me special, I have to hold on to it, was mistaken. And he does end up repairing his relationships with both McGucket and Stan and making things up to them in the best way he can. And then once he finally does that, he ends up finding that acceptance he's always been yearning for with his brother and the rest of his family. So I think all that to say, he's a good example of why you shouldn't instill the mindset of this is your superpower into kids, because it is isolating. And hopefully, it won't be taken to the extreme that it is in the show, but in principle, it's a good idea why. And to sort of end on a lighter note, there's a couple of other little random things that weren't quite to the level of getting their own slide, but I might put in here right at the end. Ford doesn't seem to have any stims that we can tell. Maybe that little hop when he does the magnet gun that apparently helps him feel more confident using it, that might qualify, but he does have sort of a safety food, favorite little snack food that he consumes all the time and always has with him, jelly beans. He really likes how they taste, and he adores finding weird ones, like funny shapes. I don't know, I want like a side thing where somebody introduces him to like the multi-flavored Jelly Belly things that are like, some of these will be weird flavors. I don't know if those were around when he went into the portal. Feel free to correct me on that in the comments if you know otherwise. Let's see. I'm trying to think of anything else particularly to add here at the end. I don't think there is anything, but yeah. Ford and Dipper, the two pines with autism. And since I forgot to do this in the last video, kudos to Jason Ritter for Dipper and J.K. Simmons for Ford and Alex Hirsch for both of them, creating these really fun, great characters on the spectrum in honestly a really great show. Like it's objectively good. Go watch it. If you've watched this whole video and haven't seen Gravity Falls, then I sincerely apologize for spoiling most of the second half of season 2, but there was a spoiler warning in the content, not the content, but the description, so that's mostly your fault. Anyhow, happy Autism Awareness Day, and thank you for 25 subscribers.